Well, hello, guys and girls out there, wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of Movie Passion. And in today's video, I want to talk about another favorite movie of mine. I want to talk about Cable Guy with Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick. I know not really many people like this movie. Many people even hate this movie and think it's the worst Jim Carrey movie of all times. And the movie is apparently so bad, even The Simpsons made fun about it, calling the script for Cable Guy or calling the movie Cable Guy the movie that was almost responsible for the end of Jim Carrey's career. Well, I don't know why that is. I just assume that it's because of Jim Carrey. You see, when you hear the name Jim Carrey, you automatically think about his weird, wacky stand up comedy routines, or you think about movies like Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, or Ace Ventura, and maybe that's what the people wanted, that's what the people were expecting, and maybe the movie was also advertised as a comedy, but it's not a comedy. It's a mix between drama and comedy, but it leans more towards the drama side instead of the comedy side. And it's also a satire, which means it's, of course, over exaggerating a couple of things, but it's also criticizing a couple of things. And that's why I really like this movie, because it has depth and it has a pretty important message. And we get to that later. So, first off, what is this movie all about? Well, it's about this guy, Steven. He lives with his girlfriend, Robin, and one day he decides to ask her if she wants to marry him. And instead of saying yes and being happy about it, she decides to say no and break up with him. I don't know why, but well, that's the way it is. And yeah, so Steven is forced to move out of their apartment, move into his own apartment where he needs a new cable for his television. So he calls the cable company asking for a cable guy that could install this cable. And then Jim Carrey shows up as the cable guy. And for the sake of this movie, let's just call him Chip, because this is one of the first names that he used. And during the entire movie, we never get to know his real name. So let's just call him Chip. So Chip installs the cable, and then Steven offers him $50 if he could also install all the pay TV channels for free, which he does. And then Chip wants to hang out with Steven. And that's nothing bad. You think, well, maybe he feels kind of sorry for Steven and he just wants to be friends with Steven and he wants Steven to forget about his ex-girlfriend and stop being sad and just cheer up and have a good time. But then Chip is really kind of forcing himself onto Steven. And it gets pretty annoying pretty fast. And then he tries to bring Steven and Robin back together, but this also involves stalking and invading their privacy. And he even at one point tricks Steven into having sex with a prostitute. So pretty messed up. And Chip even goes so far that he even beats up Robin's new friend. So yeah, it's pretty messed up. And then after Steven and Robin kind of get back together, Steven decides that he doesn't really has room in his life for a new friend, so he ends his relationship or his friendship with Chip, but he doesn't like to be rejected. So it's kind of like the typical Jekyll and Hyde thing, or if your best friend becomes your worst enemy. And Chip is starting to really mess with Steven's life. And he even gets Steven fired from his job. he managed to get Steven arrested, and at the end of the movie he even kidnaps Robin. So why is he doing all that? Why is he so crazy and so messed up? Well, that is exactly the story of this, or not the story of this movie, but that's the point of the movie. That's exactly the thing that the movie is criticizing. It's because of television, almost just like in Natural Born Killers. But the thing is, Chip's mom was never there for him. She never spent any time with Chip, and when she was working late, she always put him in front of the television, using the television as a babysitter, and she also never took any care of Chip, or she was never really interested in what he was watching. So he was watching television all the time, pretty much his entire childhood, and he was also watching a lot of things, or a lot of stuff that wasn't really suitable for his age. So that really seriously messed with his brain, because he has problems dividing between fiction and reality, and he just doesn't understand that certain things that you see on television are things that you should not do in real life, because on television those things aren't real. It's actors just pretending. But in real life, you can really seriously hurt or injure people with those kind of things. And nobody ever taught him this. And another problem is, because he apparently had no friends, and because he was watching television all the time, he never really developed his own personality. So he just kind of copied or adapted personalities that he saw on television. So he never really acts like himself. He always just acts like a weird TV or television character or movie character. And yeah, that's pretty bad. And that's a very good and very important message. That, I mean, in the 90s, television was like the thing. Television was the same thing that the internet is today. And the message is that parents should really spend more time with their kids. They should not use the television as a babysitter replacement, or, if your kid is being loud or making a lot of trouble, that you just put it in front of the television because that's the best way to shut it off. It's not okay. Parents should look out after their kids. They should really watch what their kids are watching on television, and parents should educate their kids, and they should spend time with their kids. And it's an important message. And if you replace television with internet, it's the same thing right now. So this movie is still important, because today many parents don't care about how much time their kids spend on the internet, or in front of a computer, or on their smartphones. And they also don't care about what they watch on the internet, which sites they visit, and all those kind of things. So yeah, parents should really care about their kids, and be parents, basically. And like I said, the movie has a lot of depth, and I think there is a lot of things that that people just never saw. Certain pieces that people never really managed to put together. For example, we know that Chip is capable of doing a lot of bad things, lying and stalking, invading people's privacy, physical violence, and even kidnapping. So we have to ask ourselves the question, is he really capable of really actually killing somebody? Well, looking at the end of the movie, it doesn't really seem like it, or it doesn't really look like it. But there are certain things that I just think are very odd and very suspicious, and maybe he killed somebody. Maybe. You decide. I don't know if this video will ever get so many views that one day somebody who is working on, or who used to work on this movie, sees this and confirms or denies all those theories. But I have a theory that Chip definitely did something really bad. You see, at the beginning of the movie, the story begins with Steven moving into this new apartment, and then he called the cable company asking for a cable guy, and then Chip shows up. Well, that's nothing suspicious, but later in the movie, we find out that Chip isn't even working for the cable company anymore because he got fired 6 months ago. So if he's not working for this cable company, he is not the cable guy that the cable company sent to Steven's place, which means they must have sent somebody else, somebody who never got there. I mean, even Steven wonders where the cable guy is. He says, well, where's the cable guy already? Or he's missing in action and stuff like that. So where is the original cable guy that the cable company sent? And another suspicious thing is the fact that Chip arrived at Steven's place 4 hours too late. Or to put it in other words, 4 hours after the original cable guy should have been there. So where is the original cable guy, and what was Chip doing in those 4 hours before he arrived at Steven's place? It's very odd, it's very suspicious, isn't it? So we don't know anything about the whereabouts of the original cable guy, but yeah, it's really messed up if you think about it. And then there is another theory that I have about Chip's past and about Chip's father. You see, in this conversation with Steven on the satellite dish, Chip says that he never really met his father. But I think that's not true. I think this is a lie. Because later in this conversation, he says, well, the reality isn't father knows best anymore, and it's a stomp in the face with a steel toe working boot and a drive to the hospital bloody and bashed to the reconstructive surgery. And I think this is really what happened to him. So his father really physically abused him, and it was really bad, and he just wants to forget about it, and that's why he says, well, he never really met his father. But I believe that the physical abuse that he received from his father is also the reason why he has this lisp, because that's the next topic that came up in this conversation. And in the final scene, when Steven and Chip are fighting on the satellite dish, there is this scene where Steven is punching Chip in the face, and all of a sudden his lisp is gone. And then he's punching him a second time, and the lisp comes back. So I always understood this as a little clue, a little hint that, at least in this movie, the lisp could be a result of some form of physical violence. And when we jump back to the beginning of the movie with to the conversation on the satellite dish, when Steven mentions that his brother is a speech therapist, Chip is giving us this really weird look, and he says, so this is very important, because Steven mentioning the lisp or the fact that his brother is a speech therapist, this is something that Chip feels uncomfortable with. And that's the only time in the entire movie where Chip feels insecure or uncomfortable with a topic. That never really happened. He never feels uncomfortable with anything, not even if it's having sex with prostitutes. I mean, why is that such a big problem for him? And I think it's because it's a reminder of the physical abuse that he received by his father. And, later in the movie, Steven is giving Chip a cassette. I believe it's How to Lose Your Lisp in 30 Days or something like this. And Chip seems to be very happy about it. So if the lisp is a topic that is very problematic for Chip, why would he be happy about this tape but not happy about the fact that Steven's brother is a speech therapist? Well, because the tape gives him the chance to work on his lisp on his own. So when he's listening to the tape, he can listen to his tape when he is alone, when there is nobody around. And, I believe when he's working on the lisp, and it's a reminder of all the bad things that happened to him, maybe there is also times where he just has some sort of a panic attack. And when that happens, he could just turn the cassette off and, do something else. And he wouldn't have to explain himself. And, he can choose to work on his lisp whenever he feels like it. And when Steven mentions the fact that his brother is a speech therapist, Chip automatically thought, okay, this means that I have to make an appointment. This means that I have to go and see the speech therapist. And maybe he can figure out that my lisp I wasn't born with it, that it's actually a result of some kind of an injury. And then he's asking a lot of uncomfortable questions. And maybe I would have to explain myself, and I don't want that. So it's pretty clear that he would always choose a cassette over an actual session with a real person, because that makes him feel more in control, and he wouldn't have to explain himself, and it gives him the chance to feel more comfortable with that whole thing. So yeah, maybe somebody can confirm those theories. I think it's definitely something that gives the movie a lot more depth. And it's kind of a really dark movie when you think about it. So yeah, that's my video about Cable Guy. I hope you like this video. I hope you continue watching my videos, because there is many other videos coming up about movies. It's not that I really want to stop all the other movies or all the other videos that I did. I used to do a lot of videos about mini discs and technology and stuff like that. And, right now I just don't have any material, anything interesting to film. So that's one reason why I do those movie passion videos right now. But it's just also because I have a lot of movies. I like a lot of movies. I love a lot of movies. And I just want to share that passion with you. And like I said, I hope that you discover new movies that way, or that you have the chance to see certain movies in a different light. And I hope that I manage to do the same thing with Cable Guy, because it is a pretty dark movie at some points, and it's an important movie, and it's also, especially during the end, it's a very sad movie, because it's a tragedy what happened to Chip, and that his life got so messed up just because his mom never really took care of him. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I see you in the next Movie Passion video. Bye.